The season starts now, and Julian Sayin is ready to lead Ohio State's offense with poise and precision.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, that's your sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. During today's show, we will discuss what Julian Sayin must do to manage pressure ahead of his first start, as well as how he masters a game plan. But first, game week is here. We have waited numerous months for the moment we are currently in, a few days away before Ohio State's first game of the year against the number one team in the country, the Texas Longhorns, that are coming in trying to get a lick back on Ohio State after Ohio State knocked them out of the CFP a year ago. And while Texas is coming in hungry to the shoe, Ohio State's hungry too. Ohio State is eager to attack another national championship. And while they're trying to attack another natty, they must make sure that Julian Sayin does certain things correctly when he's running the offense. And a couple of those things are that he's poised in the pocket and he's being very precise while running Ohio State's offense. While those are things that he was known for in high school, that might be a question mark to some because he hasn't started a game in college yet. However, when Ryan Day waited a little bit longer than some people thought he should with name the starting quarterback, I believe Ryan Day was making sure he made the right decision, and he made sure the quarterback that he handed the title of QB1 over to was ready to be poised, not just in the pocket, but poised while running the offense, and was ready to be precise while running the Buckeyes offense on the field. Now, it's easy to say it. It's harder to do, but I believe Ryan Day is putting the ball in the right man's hands because Sayin is ready for this moment. Sayin was a guy that was at Alabama. Then when Nick Saban retired, he hopped into the portal and came to Ohio State. Had to sit behind Will Howard a year ago, and I believe that 1 year behind Will Howard was very, very valuable for his development, not only as a quarterback and a thrower, but for his mental development, his maturing, because Will Howard possessed a lot of intangibles that a lot of quarterbacks would love to have. His leadership qualities were a little bit different. His ability on the field to know when to make certain moves and when to make certain calls, that was really important. Even down the stretch, you saw Will Howard in the playoff make some big boy throws and show off his arm that he really didn't do in the season. And Julian Sayin got to see how a slower, methodical approach to an offense looked during the regular season, and then he had to see what the up-tempo offense looked like in the postseason. And he said, if Day makes me do this the same way Howard did, I know how to do it because I watched a leader, a great leader, do it last year. And for Texas week, Julian Sayin can take a lot of those lessons he learned from Will Howard a year ago and apply them from Jump Street, apply them now. Don't wait till week 3 or week 4, week 5 to apply those. Apply them ahead of game number 1 because the leadership quality is going to be needed. We look back to spring ball, Sayin was the guy that had the better command and control of the offense the entire time, not just in the early portion of it. You can tell there was an air of confidence that Julian Sayin had that at the time, it didn't sound like Keenholz had it. I'm not saying he wasn't confident on the field, but there was something a little bit different when Sayin was out there on the field running the offense. Now, it does help when you have Jeremiah Smith and you have Cardinal Tate and Brandon Ennis and Max Clare and all those weapons on the outside. You can't forget the 5 hogs up front. They're going to be able to keep him upright all night long, well, all afternoon long. You know that you can't just look at the quarterback, and it does help the quarterback, or the talent around him is top-tier talent around the country. It makes his job a whole lot easier, but you can't lean on those guys. There are some things Sayin has to do in and of himself, and a lot of that is heeding the advice and the coaching is getting in his headset before the communication is ceased at the 15-second mark of the play clock. Now, this is a newer thing for college football, but Ryan Day was doing this in the NFL. So when the transition was there for him to be able to communicate with the quarterback on the field, that was something that wasn't new for him. it was just a pleasant surprise that it landed in his lap that all of a sudden Ryan Day can now talk to the quarterback, or maybe Chip Kelly can communicate some things after the last second, after giving the play, that can help the quarterback on the field. And that's going to go for Sam. That's new. Now, you got a little bit of it last year. I know this year they're working with you as well, but a lot of that stuff is new. You're not a 15-year or 10-year, maybe even a 5-year vet in the NFL. You're a first-time starting quarterback in college football, and this technology is new. And there are times that you know that your signal was intercepted, and you know there are times that you may get something in your ear that isn't what you expect. Not saying it's a coach's voice. I've heard there have been times when semi trucks driving by, that signal and that communication gets inside of coaches' headsets. That stuff happens. But what can you do when that happens? Stay focused. Now, it's going to be difficult because Texas, and I said this before, I said it to someone over the weekend. Texas and Ohio State are very, very similar. This is nothing new to the everydayers here at Locked On Buckeyes, but this is game week. There are a lot of new faces and new places right here on the show, and I appreciate you for tapping in ahead of Ohio State's first game against Texas. But I've made this comment before about Ohio State and Texas being very, very similar. Sark and Ryan Day, two offensive-minded coaches. The offense, it's the quarterbacks, and Sayin and Arch Manning, two guys that are hyped up, and two guys that were, I believe they're both 5-star guys, and two guys that have a lot riding on them in this game and have a lot of pressure on them. The defenses, while Texas' defense has more guys that have experience, I believe from the front four to the safeties, the deep safety on the field, they are pretty even across the board. So while they're pretty even, what can Julian Sayin do to get upper hand? Keep his mind right. Because as they're pretty even, Texas knows what they did a year ago to Jeremiah Smith that slowed him down, only allowed him to have one catch in that game. While Ohio State still won the game, Texas may think we can run that same game plan or some variations of it because you don't have Will Howard. You don't have a quarterback that's seen a lot of film, that's played a lot of games. You have a guy in Julian Sayin that's stepping into this new role for the very first time. And while it's his first time, Ryan Day is still on his side. And Ryan Day has gotten the benefit of the doubt in a lot of areas of during his career, especially at this point, entering his 7th year as Ohio State's head coach. He's going to get the benefit of the doubt with this one, too. Ryan Day has figured a lot of things out with the quarterback position, especially getting a lot out of them in the first few games when they start. Think about Stroud, the game against Minnesota. That was a game where Stroud, yeah, it's a tough environment. It's a Thursday night. It's not normal. You have to lean on some different characters for that game to be a win for Ohio State. And then the very next week, while it was a loss, Stroud did pretty well. Was it his finest game? No. But he did pretty well for a guy starting his second game in college. Now, I don't think Sayin's going to lose game number 2 like Stroud did, because I don't think Grambling State is that type of opponent that Oregon was. And I don't think it's anything that I'm going to say or even going to believe that's going to make that statement, well, potentially be false. I do think, though, that Sayin's year with Will Howard, his time with Ryan Day this offseason, while competing with Lincoln Kent-Holmes to be the starting quarterback for Ohio State, has prepared him in the best way to be poised and to be very precise while running the Buckeyes offense. And while he's trying to be precise while running the Buckeyes offense, he must master the game plan. And there are some very specific things he can do to accomplish that goal. This episode is brought to you by Rougiette Ready. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra and Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Head to rougiette.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law. but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiet website for full safety information. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. Speaking of helping us out, there's one thing Julian Sayin can do to help a lot of Buckeye fans out, which is make sure he's prepared to play Texas. And this is a big ask for someone who is a redshirt freshman that hasn't started a game ever in his collegiate career to be ready to face the number one team in the country. But the task is not too big for Julian Sayin. I don't believe, and I'm going to keep saying this all week, that Ryan Day picked the wrong person to be QB1. While Lincoln Kienholz is more athletic and is more of a dual threat quarterback, that's not what Ryan Day wants to be the primary aspect of the quarterback's skill set when he's out there on the field. Ryan Day wants a quarterback that can be a pocket passer. Yeah, a little mobility is great, but you got to be able to manage and make all the throws all over the field while using your arm to slice and dice the opposing defense. And that's Sayin's goal this week. But while that is Sayin's goal, he must master the Buckeyes game plan, which is a tough ask and a tough task, not just for someone starting their first game. It was tough for Will Howard a year ago because that was different than anything he had ever done at Ohio State. But it all starts with communicating with your coaches, building chemistry with your receivers, as well as making sure you're watching a lot of film. And if I am saying, I'm trying to go back to last year's game in the Cotton Bowl to where Texas did a lot of things really, really good to Ohio State. They got some pressure on Will Howard. They found ways to slow down Jeremiah Smith. You can't completely stop him. It's not like he had 0 catches, but he had 1. And it wasn't a really long game. So Texas, may want to say in that box, they checked it. Find a way to slow down Jeremiah Smith. But find some things they did in their coverages. Find some things they did with the front four to allow those things to help you prepare for this week, because that's a part of the game plan. Part of the game plan is not only knowing the offense that Ryan Day wants to run and the specifics that are truly and only for this week, but also you got to know what Texas might throw at you, which is very, very difficult because Texas, like Ohio State, they lost a lot of guys on defense. Anthony Hill Jr. is still there, and Simmons is still there, and those are some names that are well known around college football that you must identify every single play, because if you don't, one time you don't ID that one player, he's in your face, you're on your back, and you get sacked, and all of a sudden 3rd and 8 when you had a wide open Jeremiah Smith turns into 4th and 15 and you're lining up the punt. You don't want that to happen, but you have to manage and master the game plan. And I think Ryan Day, in his experience with first-year starting quarterbacks at Ohio State, is going to help him in this matchup. Now, it's not so much Fields or Stroud, where those quarterbacks are really, really good, but they even have things that made them a little bit nervous week number 1. I think Fields played a little bit in Athens. Stroud didn't really play much his freshman season. McCord didn't really play that much. Well, he did have a start in before he was a full-time starter for Ohio State, so I can't really make that comparison because McCord did start a game for Stroud before McCord won the QB job, which is still weird to think about. That they were really considering sitting Stroud for McCord because Stroud was a guy they didn't know if he had it all together. I know it was announced as an injury, but it's hard to believe that after those first couple of games, especially that loss, that they weren't second guessing their decision. And that goes back to another reason why I believe that Day picked Sayin, because he has learned from a lot of the things that have happened at Ohio State during his time there. He's figured out what to do in the offseason, what different tactics to use, what will work on Sayin versus what won't. He's learned those things along the way, and he's ready and prepared to help Sayin with the game plan. And one thing I think when it comes to Day, this is also going to help with Sayin mastering the game plan. Day is going to make sure the game plan is catered to Sayin's strengths. You're not going to try to cater something to just an overarching quarterback or just an umbrella of different styles of quarterbacks and saying, oh, no. Our offense, it can work with a dual threat guy. It can work with a true pocket passer. It can be with a guy that's a pocket passer but can occasionally be a little mobile. No, you cater it to Sayin. And that's going to help him when it comes to mastering the game plan. You're not looking at a game plan that's catered for somebody else or is catered for your strengths and then has a couple of your weaknesses, a couple of your weakest weaknesses thrown in there saying, I know you aren't really the best at this, but really you can't really master it at all. But we know Texas is weak here. So I'm going to throw this in there and say, go do it on 3rd and 3 or go do it on 4th and 8. Why? Because we need you to do something that you're not good at. No. Now, maybe there might be a time when you pull something out because you have to, but in the master game plan, it's not at the top of your list. Sayin must watch the film. And I think it would be very beneficial for him to watch film with Caleb Downs, a guy that is known as Coach Downs by his peers, a guy that is open to helping anybody out there be prepared for the next game or get better in a specific drill. I think that same mindset is going to be needed for him to help Sayin this week. And it's not every week where I'm saying that you need to go and watch film with the guy on defense, but if you have a better handle on what a defense is doing, especially from a safety like Downs that has seen a lot of football from his time at Alabama and his time at Ohio State, has seen a lot of different quarterbacks and seen a lot of different offenses, when you can sit down with that young man and say, I need your help to help me prepare for this game, if you glean, if you listen to everything he is saying and take it to heart, you're going to be better prepared for battle. I'm thinking about this as I say this little thought here about Downs. I'm thinking about a conversation that Ed Reed and Peyton Manning had. It was a time, I think it was in the playoffs, where the Ravens and Colts were playing. And Ed Reed made a certain move normally when a quarterback made a certain decision. And Peyton Manning had a counter for it. Well, Peyton Manning saw what Ed Reed was doing. He had a counter for Ed Reed's move. But Ed Reed had a counter for Peyton Manning's counter. He ended up getting a pick. And in an interview, in a documentary way after this happened, they asked Ed Reed, I think it was Peyton Manning asked him or someone else asked him, saying, how did you know that Peyton Manning was going to do this? Well, Ed Reed said, well, I knew what my move normally is, and I knew if I did this, you're going to do this. So I had to counter the move that I expected you to make. And we both guessed correctly, just I had the last laugh. And that's the same thing that needs to happen this week. Downs needs to help Sayin. Sayin can also help Downs. It's a two-way street. But you're preparing for your first start and trying to master the game plan. A lot of this is knowing and getting a different picture from a defensive player's point of view about how to attack certain things Texas is expected to do. If for Downs knows counters. Downs has counters for your counter and then a counter for your second counter. Why? He's that kind of guy. Well, he is that guy coaching up IGB and coaching up Jermaine Matthews Jr. He can also coach up Ohio State's QB1. While he's coaching up Ohio State's QB1, he is helping Sayin master the game plan ahead of his first start. Speaking of Sayin's first start, there's going to be a lot of pressure on number 10 this week before he battles with Texas. And there are some things he can do to manage the pressure he is going to feel in a few days from now. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions, so whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before Week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. Once again, Make sure you visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Thank you all for tapping in Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. All eyes are going to be on number 10 on Saturday afternoon when he is battling with Texas. And as he is preparing to battle with Texas and have all eyes on him, there is a lot of pressure for one man to have on his shoulders. And Ryan Day has dealt with a lot of pressure at Ohio State. And I know he's still going to deal with a lot of pressure this year, especially with a 4-game losing streak to Michigan. Well, Ryan Day can talk to Sayin and can help coach Sayin up for this game while also helping him handle a crazy amount of pressure. And think about what he is getting ready to walk into. His first start ever in college football after Ohio State not only won a national championship, but it's the Buckeyes' first national championship in Ryan Day's era as Ohio State head coach. That's a lot to ask of one person to walk into. You're trying to attack a national championship. You have the best player on offense in the country on your side. You got the best player on defense in the country on the other side of the ball. And Sam's trying to figure out not only how to be poised and precise while he's on the field, how to master the game plan right now, but throughout all of it, the preparation for the game itself, and even the aftermath, he's trying to figure out how to master and manage the pressure. And it's not just something for this week. He is going to feel pressure all season and even next year. He is going to feel the amount of pressure no human being should feel. And I'm not going to lie to you. It's tough. It's absolutely tough being a starting quarterback at Ohio State. Not only because you have 100,000 plus strong in the stadium every single game. No, they're cheering for you. But he saw what happened to McCord. He saw the aftermath after the Oregon loss and the Michigan loss. He saw the question marks Ohio State had and the fans had after some of the wins Ohio State had a year ago. And that stuff is tough. He saw and he witnessed some of the things that Ryan Day went through and what he showed his players after some of the weirdest moments in Ryan Day's career. Sayin saw all of that. And then you factor in, media at Ohio State is very friendly, don't get me wrong, but it's going to be tough to answer some of the questions after a game when there are 50 to 60 media members inside of a room ready to ask you questions that are pertinent to the game you just played. That is difficult. But I think for Day, this is a task for him once again, not only while helping him master the game plan and be poised and precise while he's running the offense. I believe Ryan Day can help Sayin manage the pressure. And for what is he, 18 or 19 years old? No 18 or 19-year-old young man is thinking that he is going to have to deal with what Sayin is going to have to deal with this year. But when you come to Ohio State, especially when you're a quarterback, you're going to have to deal with a lot of pressure every single day, every single week, every game day. It doesn't matter who you're playing. There is a lot of pressure. I remember a couple years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, Ohio State beat Iowa. It was after a bye week, and I want to say it was Stroud's second year as a starting quarterback. It was 22 or 23, but I want to say Stroud was a quarterback. Ohio State blew out Iowa. It wasn't even close. But after that game, I remember coming on this show, and my guy, Jeff Hunt, was here with me, and we were reacting to that game and saying, something doesn't feel right. And you look at that score in that game, you think, why are you so disgruntled? I wouldn't say I'm disgruntled, but why are you trying to nitpick about Ohio State? One, that's what we do here. We nitpick because Ohio State needs to be the best school in the country, the best team in the country. So we are a show here where the aspirations that we discuss and the reason why we are so critical of the team is because Ohio State is a national championship aspiring program every single year. So, of course, even in the Iowa game, which was a massive win, I think it was on homecoming day to be exact, things didn't look right. And we came on here and talked about it. And when things didn't look right, Sam's going to look back at some of the history of the sport and saying, y'all crazy. I'm laughing because there are times that statement is true. Some of us are crazy, but we have to provide what you, the fan, want. It's critical thinking, the ability to analyze the football while keeping the standard high. I mean, the ceiling is the roof, as Michael Jordan said, and that's the goal here, is to make sure the standard is the standard and it never changes. It never comes down. It only keeps going up. And Sayin sees that. Well, Ryan Day has been here throughout a lot of turmoil, a lot of hostile moments, a lot of times where people have been throwing death threats his way, which I'm going to say this here on the show. I don't let me bring this up. Don't throw death threats at anybody. And I don't care if it's your favorite quarterback of your favorite team in the biggest game of the year. Don't throw death threats. Not at your favorite player, not at someone that's a coworker, not at someone you don't even know. We don't normally do this on the show, but when thinking about Ryan Day and some of the things that he's had to deal with as Ohio State's head coach, death threats has been one of those things he's had to manage, which has put some unneeded stress on his life. Death threats should never, ever, ever be thrown at anybody. But Sayin no, there have been people that have had to deal with that kind of stuff, and that is a level of pressure, once again, no human should have to deal with. But for Julian Sayin, this game can catapult your career in the right way, can help you build a lot of confidence at the right time of the season, especially after beating the number one team in the country. You got Grambling State, you have Ohio, then an off week. Think about that. You start your career while managing and mastering the game plan. You stay poised and precise on the field, and you manage the pressure in the best way you can. And all of a sudden, you go when you start your season 3-0 as Ohio State starting quarterback. That's gonna take away some stress and pressure off of you and give you a lot of confidence. And I think for Ryan Day, this show is as much about him as it is about Sayin. I know Sayin's a tag, Sayin's a quarterback, but Day has to make sure he helps this man as much as he can. Because if Day and maybe even Will Howard and maybe even some other Ohio State quarterbacks that are now in the NFL or maybe working a different job that's not with football, they can all help this young man prepare for Texas and make sure he's ready for battle. Thank you all for tapping Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. For your second listen, make sure you check out Locked On College Football, because my guy, Spencer McLaughlin, is not only the right person to tap into reacting to games like Farmageddon this past weekend, but he's also the right man to get you ready for the first full weekend of college football. You can tap in Locked On College Football and Locked On Buckeyes on the YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes on a Monday. We'll see you next time.